All right, we're live. We're live.
Are we doing live?
We're live, Dan. We
Okay.
are live, and I'll kind of. Hey, look, everybody! That's our faces right there. We're close. We're here. So we did. For those who were just checking in, we did a podcast yesterday for the playing games and the Thursday games, and we figured, all right, well, let's look at Friday's games. We're a day out, so we're probably going to post some picks along the way here. But we went over yesterday, and we want to get into the Friday slate, which there's been some line movement. So the first game on Friday is going to be Loyola at Ohio State. Ohio State is essentially a pick 'em right now. It's a pick 'em both ways. So I think Ohio State's trash. I hated the way they lost to Penn State, and they're a team I don't want to touch. Now Loyola obviously has made runs in the past. I mean, it's a Big Ten team versus a small school that's been there before. I think there will be people blindly betting Ohio State, thinking they're the better team. Dan, I just want to warn people: they have not been good of late.
No, they have not been good. And as someone who's an Ohio State fan, I can tell you, especially they're on my do not bet early list. They're a team that I'm definitely going to be avoiding. That being said, I do think that the market has been interesting early on. I think that we've definitely seen Loyola be the more public side, without a doubt, which I'm actually, to be honest with you, pretty surprised with. Not that it really matters at the end of the day, because, I mean, again, I think that these percentages really don't mean a whole hell of a lot. It's more of just kind of a reflection of where, people are putting their money, et cetera, et cetera. People are always interested, but I am always kind of interested to see the public perception of where things lie. I do think it's personally extremely interesting to kind of see the loyal line movement. This opened Ohio State -2.5 some places. It opened Ohio State -1.5 most places. Right now it's a pick 'em. We've seen it kind of go back and forth between Loyola and Ohio State. Ohio State's kind of -1, whatever. Joe, I mean, you know exactly about how this team is. How this whole Loyola perception is. Personally, I think it's really really interesting to kind of see where they are, because people need to understand this is not the same team as last year, right? Like, people need to understand this is not like Loyola, and I'm gonna pull up their peripheral stats here. Like, this is not the same like Ramblers team as it was last year, who really obviously made it very far in that tournament. People were really really high on this team. It's just not the same. They're good, but they're not nearly as good. And that being said, like, this Ohio State team, pretty shitty compared to where they were last year. Now, you remember this Ohio State team also lost last year in the first round, Joe. So they've done that quite a bit under Chris Holtzman. They made it to the second round just twice under him, and they've lost in the first round twice. So this is not a team that's done a very good job under Holtman, and they really haven't advanced far. It's going to be the EJ Liddell show, and it's going to kind of be up to Loyola to defend that, which is certainly going to be interesting. Again, not a high scoring team, under fourth in the country for Loyola, but again, their cat call 18th in the country defensively, only allowing just under 62 points per game. So yeah, it's going to be a lower scoring game. Just from that angle. I'm trying to see if I can find the opening total here. We have, let's see, 133.5. It looks like down to 132.5 across the market. This is interesting for Ohio State, because they're very middle of the pack offensively and defensively. Definitely, maybe not middle of the pack offensively. They're probably top upper third offensively. Very middle of the pack defensively. They don't really excel in anything. Like, they're good at shooting the two, which is not surprising when you have a guy like EJ Liddell, who obviously shoots a lot more twos and threes. But they're not great. They're good at getting to the line. They get a lot of blocks, which is good. But they're not an elite team in any sort of metric whatsoever. So it almost does feel like a middle of the road team. And to be honest with you, Joe, this Ohio State team, like, they have some pretty bad losses this year. Like, I don't know if you've gone through their schedule and kind of see, what they have and kind of what's going on there. But, this is not a team that I'm looking to back. I think they were really bad down the stretch in the Big Ten. I'm trying to remember who they got absolutely just the ass, just blowing out of them in the last few days there. I'm trying to remember exactly who that was. But this is an early game Friday. A lot of people are probably going to be, probably on the under in this one because it is that Loyola team. I do think that's probably going to be the public perception. I think if Loyola is going to win this game, they're going to have to score, some legitimate points. But, Ohio State 1-4 in the last 5. Ever since that upset win on the road at Illinois and Champaign, like, they've been pretty god awful. They got the shit kicked out of them by Michigan, the shit kicked out of them by Nebraska on their own home court. Like, they got trounced in Maryland. This is just not an Ohio State team that finished very well. And, Loyola at least consistently was good, for the most part this year. They had some, bad losses, but, good Loyola team. I think that there's going to be a lot of people on this Loyola side. They're going to be a popular upset pick, I think.
All right, man. I'll look at the next game. Auburn's backing in. They're taking on Jacksonville State, who they've been there before, but so Auburn has one of the best players in the country. If you ask me, Jabari Smith, I think the kid could be it's gonna be an NBA talent, but could be something. Probably needs a little more time. Definitely coming out this year, but Auburn's legit. They're good, but again, that was a bad loss in the tournament. Here they are. That cost them a 1 seed, Dan. So here they are, the 2 seed now. They should win by 15.5, but I just think that loss that they had, they haven't been great against the spread. Their last 10 games, 2-8 against the spread, Auburn. So I would just be careful on a spread with Auburn off a loss in the first game here. So it's a pass for me. I don't see value in Jacksonville State, but this game's a pass for me. But I would have taken Auburn, but their struggles of late, it has me passing.
Well, this one opens 17.5, Joe. So I think if you like Jacksonville State, you're chasing the number at this point. It's down to 15.5 across the market, and maybe we'll see some 16s or some uptick on Friday in that, in that kind of case. But Jacksonville State's an interesting, kind of case here because they're, this is a new conference that they're playing in, so it's not the OVC. They're in a different conference this year. They've done they've had a very different schedule. I actually think the OVC is more competitive than what they played in this year. And, Lipscomb really is the best team that, is kind of known out of the ASUN. So, whatever. I guess Liberty is kind of well known there too. And Bellarmine is kind of up and coming, but they can't play in the tournament. Look, Jacksonville, this is the team that, lost to Jacksonville in that game. And I don't know, dude. Like, they lost in the semifinals to a team that I don't think is particularly that good. They won the regular season. There was a team that was ineligible to win to get into the tournament. It was Bellarmine. So they kind of back in because they won the regular season. So this is not even a team that, did well in their conference tournament. It's kind of an excuse. Yeah, Auburn has been really terrible. And, that loss to A&M was bad. But A&M was playing so well. We talked about that stat. Teams off the double bye just don't play well in those scenarios. Even before that game, Auburn had won, 3 of the final 4. They were playing slightly better. They're a team that has problems on the road, which is, again, where we're seeing a lot of consistency in that this year. But, again, they lost one non-conference game. It was to UConn. It was like a triple overtime. And other than that, they have losses to Arkansas, Florida, and Tennessee. Like, I don't want to get too down on Auburn. And if anything, I think this Jacksonville State team is fraudulent as fuck. This is a team that got, booty whipped by, South Alabama and VCU in back-to-back games. Like, it's just not a team I have a lot of faith in. Yes, Jacksonville State put up a good fight against Alabama early in the season, and people are going to look to that game as some kind of important marker to kind of see where they are. But I just don't have a lot of faith in this Jacksonville State team. They didn't finish the season, well. You lose that game to Jacksonville, inferior opponent, in the conference. And look, I don't feel really good about this team. Auburn is, again, an elite offensive team versus a team that's, upper third defensively, but they're not a great job. I like Auburn here, and I haven't jumped on it yet, but I'm very much considering the 15.5.
All right, you got Montana State, Texas Tech. Some people love Texas Tech in this tournament. I don't. Montana State's averaged 70 points a game in 17 straight games. The total's 129. It went up to 132. I want to take the over, but I've kind of lost a few points already. So I'm leaning over right now, Dan. I want to wait for the best number. If I can get it at 131, I'm going to take the over. But I'm waiting it out a little bit here. But I think Montana State's going to score, and I think Texas Tech will score off their defense as well. But again, a team playing on a neutral court that was really good at home. I'm staying away from the spread, but I think this one can get over the total.
Yeah, again, another interesting matchup. Montana State hasn't been into the tournament since like 1996. This is like their first time there. Danny Sprinkle, who is their head coach, has completely turned the program around, which, in my opinion, has been really impressive. Obviously, Texas Tech's first year without Chris Beard in a while. They had a really good regular season compared to what they've done the past couple of years. But in general, I'm really not enamored with this team. I agree with you. I don't think that this is a team that's going to do a whole hell of a lot in the tournament. Yet elite defensively, no doubt about that. The defensive metrics are there. In terms of 2-point percentage, especially they're fantastic in the interior, but they're awful against the three. 305th against the three in just attempts. Teams love to shoot on them in the three. Now they're not necessarily successful. They're 65th in the country against the three in terms of percentage. But if you have a team who can actually knock down some shots, I believe that Texas Tech is a team that will actually give you those opportunities. And I think the stats and the perfect stats are a little bit misleading. They're really, really good. On the boards, which is a classic Texas Tech calling. Defensive team, good on the boards, et cetera, et cetera. Montana State, they're really good offensively. So this is going to be a really interesting matchup, Joe. 41st in the country offensively. I think this Montana State team can kind of do a little something. You saw what they did earlier in the year. They gave Colorado a really good fight opening night. They played Northern Colorado in that game. They had some pretty decent games there. North Dakota State they beat very handily. They did lose to South Dakota State pretty badly, but again, they gave up 91 in that game. But I think the way that this game sets up in terms of the way that this team likes to play fits them very well because they're not going to give up, in my opinion, 85, 90 points against Texas Tech. I mean, since Texas Tech had that offensive outburst against Baylor, 61, 66, 66, 73, 51, 72, 55, 65. I mean, they cracked 70 once. I just don't think this is going to be a team that's going to be fantastic offensively. Now, if you're asking me, does Texas Tech get the 70? Probably. It's probably going to be close there. Montana was definitely the best team in the Big Sky. They're a really good offensive team. I agree with your premise of over here, Joe, and here's why. They're unbelievable at getting to the free throw line. 16th in the country in free throws attempted, 7th in the country in free throws made per game. This is a team that likes to go inside, and they're going to challenge Texas Tech inside, who's very, very good there. They're also what can Montana State do? Well, they can shoot the three ball. They're 39th in the country, shooting the three, and I think that's going to be an issue for Texas Tech. Now, the other side is that Montana State eventually is very middle of the country, 162nd. They don't do anything spectacularly defensively. They're decent against the three, but, I mean, really nothing special. And, Texas Tech is awful, shooting the three, 289th in the country this year. But Texas Tech, just like them, they get to the free throw line a lot. So if you have a lot of both these two teams that get to the free throw line a lot, you're going to end up having a higher total. I think there's going to be some points in this game. People are going to love the under here, Joe, because it's a Texas Tech team. But I agree. This one opened 129.5. I grabbed some 130. I thought it would go down, Joe. I misread the line as well. And, it's gone up to 132.5. I think, and I'm hopeful with you, that if we see this drop in the next few days, we see a 130 again, hopefully. But I agree. I'll be on the over with you Friday if it gets to that number.
Yale, Purdue. For those who don't understand the Purdue situation, they're a very good team. But, dude, they suck against the spread. Do you know they have 0 wins against the spread in the last 10 games? And depending on where one of them, they might have won, but they're 0-8-2 against the spread the last 10 games. And they're 15.5-point favorites against a Yale team that I think can play a little bit. Again, the fact that they haven't covered in 10 straight games, I am out on that one. The total, though, 144, 143. I want to say over, but that means that Purdue's probably going to have to score 80 points. Like an 80 to 65 game still doesn't cover. So that's why I'm a little torn on like the total. I think over, but 80 to 60 is, I don't know. Maybe Yale can put up a few more points. I don't know if Purdue can put up 80. That's a tough one for me.
Yeah, so I think the spread is so big because Yale is a below average defensive team, 175th in the country in points allowed per game. Not great, and they're very middling in what they can do on the offensive side, 146 in the country, in points per game too, Joe. So I understand your point of view in terms of that. I'm a little concerned because Purdue, despite the fact that they're, really, really good offensively, 13th in the country, average just under 80 points per game. They're not great defensively either, 173rd in the country. So obviously that's naturally going to lead you to an over. I was surprised when I saw this number open at 144.5. I think that's still a little bit high. And we have seen the market come down a little bit. We're seeing 143, 143.5 right now. We're actually seeing 143 and 142.5, excuse me. Looks like BetOnline has a 142.5 juice to the over. It is interesting. Purdue shoots the lights out. 4th best team in the country in terms of shooting the three. That's exactly what they do very well. But the one thing that Yale does well is they defend the three, 35th in the country, again, against the three in terms of 3-point percentage. So they defend the perimeter. So that is going to be an interesting matchup there. And why I do think that ultimately under is probably the right side because I do think defensively Yale is going to push them off the perimeter a little bit. And, they're going to have to go inside. Now, Purdue has no problem with that. They're 19th in the country, in 2-point field goal percentage, but they're just 222nd in 2-point shots attempted, which is definitely below average. And obviously because of that, they're a big perimeter team. And I do think that is going to be an issue. That being said, like I don't buy this Yale team. I don't buy the Ivy League. Just in general this year. They didn't play last year. So I think that, play there was really, really far down compared to where it was, even just a couple of years ago. A lot of teams lost a lot of good players. And I do think that people still think this these Ivy Leagues are still similar to where they were, just a couple of years ago. Now, Yale had a great win versus UMass, but then they face a team like Seton Hall and they lose by almost 40 points. They lost to Vermont on the road by 8. They lost to Auburn by 26. To me, the most comparable game there is Auburn. And, again, it's not a road game, but, a 26-point loss to Auburn, a 27-point loss to St. Mary's. This is just not a team I'm backing, and I don't believe in them. And, yeah, I don't love Auburn in this tournament. No, they're not my cup of tea, and they're not a team that I'm Purdue. Geez, I apologize. I was looking at Auburn. Yeah. Purdue is not my cup of tea. They're, I don't have them making the Final Four at all. But I do think that people are, really, I'm surprised that people aren't looking at Purdue here with the 16. And early on, this number opened 16 and a half. This got up to 18, Joe, and it shot back down. And I do think that we're seeing a lot of, a lot of the public be on Yale just because of how poorly Purdue finished out the year. And just looking at what Yale has done this year, when they faced really good talent, they've struggled mightily. So I'm gonna PP this one, and it's probably silly because it will probably go down a little bit more. But again, podcast, nature of the business. Give me Purdue minus 15 and a half. I just don't trust this Yale team. It's very similar to my feelings, with the Auburn Jacksonville game. I'm not PPing that one because I really think that we may see a 14 in Auburn. But I think Purdue minus 15 and a half is a really good play here, Joe. And that's the way that I'm looking at it, for me at least.
Villanova takes on Delaware. Jameer Nelson Jr.
Did you mute yourself?
Can you hear me?
But now I can. I apologize for that. There we go.
Jameer Nelson Jr. is on Delaware. He leads them against Villanova. Now, Dan Nova plays tight games. 15.5-point favorites. I don't think Delaware can play any sort of defense at all. This isn't the best Villanova team either. Like them being a 2 seed, they won games. They know how to win games. I think they roll Delaware. I actually not even gonna. I always look at a Villanova game as like, how close are they gonna keep it? I think they roll Delaware. I think they roll them.
Are you PP in Villanova, or do you want to hear some of the periphery stats on before we go into that?
Yeah. This one I'm just like, Villanova or nothing.
Okay, so the one thing I will say is that I think that I don't think this Villanova team is nearly as good as the past, and I think that
no way, not at all.
Yeah, I think you've seen the odds reflect that in kind of how people view the Big East this year. This is like a down Clemson team, right? Like that, like in we're talking about a Clemson team in the ACC that's down in football this year. I feel like this is kind of that Nova year, although they're better than what Clemson was this year. That being said, like still really, really good defensively, 27th in the country, allowing just over 23 points per game. This Delaware team, I was pretty surprised that they won the CAA. I mean, that conference was there for the taking, but I was surprised that they won it. Not great splits on Delaware, 170 in points per game, averaging just under 74 a game, but they give up about 70 points per game, just under 70 points per game, 200th in the country. Defensively, that it's a problem. So I do think, again, this is in my personal opinion, a really good matchup for Nova because it's going to be strength. It's going to be strength for Nova and weakness versus weakness, which is a good thing when you have a big popular team like a Villanova. That being said, we're seeing a lot of, and not surprisingly, that being said, we're seeing a lot of the early public money on Delaware. This number opened 16.5. We're seeing 15.5s across the board, although it just dropped to 15 at Bet Online. So we might see some 15s there. Bet Online's a little bit sharper than some of the other books here. So we're going to, we might be seeing some 15s in the market there soon. Again, this Delaware team, what do they do well? Well, the answer is not a whole hell of a lot. They get to the free throw line, at least, in the top third of the country, and they're really good at the inside game. 2-point percentage, they're 38th in the country. So they're going to try and take it to Villanova on the inside. The problem is defensively, they're just awful. They're awful on the perimeter, 271st in the country in 3-point percentage, 286 in the country in 2-point percentage. So at least a little bit better there. But Villanova, I mean, they shoot the ball at an extraordinary clip, almost 36% good for 61st in the country this year. Like, this matches up very, very well for Villanova. I would be stunned if Delaware really gave them a good fight here. I honestly, Joe, I just don't see it. I really don't. I'm not jumping out here to kind of take Nova. Like, I'm definitely not. But I will say that I'm also not like, there's no way I'm taking Delaware in this one. It's Nova or nothing.
Yep, I feel the same way. Miami, USC. I think I kind of know your feelings on USC. I think they're better than Miami. And it's an ACC SEC thing here. Miami's played well. I mean, they've been pretty good their last 10 games or so. They did have that win against BC that you remember that they had to kind of pull out. But I don't know, man. I think at the little spread here, I wish I could give Miami another look. I want to do it, but if I'm basing it off of conferences, give me USC.
I get it. I definitely understand your point of view there. I really do, but let me just kind of get into why I just don't have a strong belief in this USC team. Again, I'm not out here, trying to proclaim or anything for Miami. That's not a team that I am, by any means trying to come out here and say, they're good, but they beat Duke during the regular season. They gave them a fight, down. They lost by 4 in the tournament. And again, I don't think this Duke team is all that special either. But they've had games where they played at a very, very high level. They've had games where they played at a very low level. They got the shit kicked out of them at Alabama this year, and they lost by 32 in that game. It was not close. USC was fantastic to start the year. Honestly, truly was, Joe. May have been one of the teams I was most surprised about in their non-conference. They didn't play anyone super special, but it was just the way that they dominated that. They dominated Georgia Tech, who was in their non-conference schedule. They played Utah in a non-conference game. They beat them by 20 early on. They beat San Diego State in a game that was not competitive by 15. Again, they weren't playing, world beaters here, but they played a lot of good teams. They beat those teams soundly. Recently, though, it does feel like USC has really kind of hit a low here. It really started after that Washington game. 2-point win versus Washington State at home, a team that underperformed this year. 3-point win at Oregon State. It's, again, a team that was awful this year after being so good last year. A 1-point win at Oregon. So they found ways to win these close games. But these are all teams that they should have been beating routinely. And then they started facing good teams. Arizona beats them by 20 on their home court. UCLA beats them by 7. They beat Washington by 4, but then used UCLA in the tournament by 10. Didn't cover that Washington game either. They were 7-point favorites in that one. This is just not a USC team that I'm, super high on. And yeah, the ACC sucks this year. I get it, but I gotta be honest with you. I'm going Miami in this game, and I feel pretty good about it. I just don't have a belief in USC. And, again, just kind of breaking down what, USC is this year compared to last year where, even though they were 25-8, they lost in the regional finals. USC made it decently far last year, Joe. And I felt they were just a better team last year. USC is more of a defensive team this year, 80th and 79th in the country, and points allowed per game, just under 66 per game. So Miami is going to have to, do something to kind of get to there offensively. But they're 77th in the country. Not a major discrepancy. Miami is going to struggle on the defensive end, but they've been getting better as the year has gone on, and they really have 70 to BC, 72 to Syracuse, 69 to BC, 80 to Duke, 70 to Virginia Tech, 64 to Pittsburgh, 74 to Virginia, which that one is the outlier. That you can't be allowed 74 to Virginia. But look, Miami, in my opinion, they do things well. They shoot the three pretty well. USC definitely in the bottom tier in that, 194th in the country, shooting just allow opponents to shoot just over 33.5%. Miami shoots 35%, from 3. So I do think that's going to be an advantage for the Canes. Hurricanes are very good on against the ball. They're 22nd in the league and not allowing turnovers, 32nd in forcing turnovers, and that's exactly where USC struggles. USC turns the ball over at an extraordinary rate, 238th in the country. Now Miami does the same thing. They pass the ball a lot, get a lot of steals, but they turn the ball over at 351st in the country. So again, I look at this and say, this is going to be a very, very interesting game to me, and how kind of things break down. I do think the spread is right. I think the number is right. I make it Miami, +1, -1, whatever you want to say. It's right in that 1 point range there. I lean Miami. There's definitely a no play on this one for me, without a doubt. Like I'm not invested on either side, but I do think that this is going to be, first off, I'm very surprised where the total is, because I think this is going to be an over game. I'm surprised where the total is. Opened at 140.5. We're now seeing 139.5. Although we're starting to see some money come back on the over. So I may get invested on the over here, but again, I just think for me, it's Miami or nothing. I'm personally not playing it.
Virginia Tech at Texas. I'm going to make this easy. Give me Virginia Tech. Ring the bell. Texas is so damn overrated. They've been so bad of late. Texas is just I don't even know if they deserve a 6 seed. Everyone's going to be on Texas, Virginia Tech. Like, I know it's ACC, Big 12, like whatever. No, Texas overrated. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But give me the better playing team in this spot off a championship run over the underachieving Texas team that they've always been.
Yeah, I mean, look, they have Chris Beard, who has a lot of success in the tournament. So does that change from Shaka Smart? You know what I mean? Does that kind of change from what Shaka Smart did with Texas? I don't know. Virginia Tech, in my opinion, at least won the conference tournament. So there is an uptick of, what have you done for me lately? There's an uptick for, at least what they've done. Which is impressive. Look, Virginia Tech's win against Duke, I thought was really, really good. They played very, very well that entire ACC tournament. Since that buzzer beater against Clemson, you saw them roll. Like, they were rolling against Notre Dame. The UNC game wasn't even competitive. Very rarely was competitive. They finished, 2 losses out of their final 14 games. They were really, really good to end the year, this Virginia Tech team. They got better as the year went on. They were really not great early on. They had bad losses. Memphis, Xavier, Wake Forest killed them. They in their non-conference, they struggled, but they got better. And, again, Texas, to me, very, very inconsistent team. And, again, not shockingly, on the road. Lost the final 3 games of the regular season in conference tournament. Baylor, Kansas, and TCU, all in unspectacular fashion. I am concerned about this Texas team, Joe. I am, but the one thing, and again, not surprisingly, you're going to see this total is very, very low. 100. Right now it's sitting at 123. It opened 124.5. I think you're going to see a lot of people on the under here. I also lean the under. I know it's going to be a low square there, but Virginia Tech 22nd in the country in points allowed. Texas 6th in the country in points allowed. Texas, Joe, offense was the issue. 253rd in the country in scoring rate this year. They just couldn't score. Shooting the three, they were 255th. Inside the 2, they were 156th. So they were at least okay inside. And I do think that is kind of where they're going to try and match up on Vodtech, because Vodtech 182nd in the country against 2-point attempts this year. Vodtech didn't get to the free throw line at all. At least Texas Tech did. Vodtech, one of the worst teams in the entire country getting the free throw line. 349th in field goals and free throws attempted, and 334th in free throws this year per game. Again, just embarrassing. However, on the other side, they were elite in those categories as well. Just didn't allow a lot of free throws. So yes, I lean under here. I do think that that's the right side. I think obviously we've seen some movement towards that. I understand liking Virginia Tech in the spot, Joe. I absolutely do. But if we're just being non-biased here, first off, letdown spot for Virginia Tech coming off that Duke game. You get really, really high night, then you get low because you're off that Duke game for a couple of days. You're partying, you're going around, you're having fun, you get ready for the tournament. You get to face a Texas team that has a lot of really high talented recruits and a lot of length in that team. Even their guards are 6'2", 6'4", 6'3". Timmy Allen 6'6", Bishop 6'7", Trey Mitchell, the UMass transfer 6'9". Like, they have a lot of length in that team, and I do think that is going to be a problem for Virginia Tech. Not that they don't have size, but just the passing lanes are going to be very, very tough. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if we saw a 100-point game, but I do think that this number may go up a little bit. I'm not giving it out right now, but I like the under in this game.
I don't know much about Chattanooga, but I heard a little something that they can play. Illinois, again, with Kofi Auburn.
Kofi, yes. Say it. You know you want to say it.
Coburn.
There you go.
Again, I watched that Illinois game against Indiana. They just couldn't knock down shots. They couldn't. And I think they're going to have to throw it inside to win the they're going to have to use their best player, but if they can't play that inside out game where they get it inside, he gets doubled and he kicks it back out, they don't knock down those shots, they struggle. Everything I read, people giving Chattanooga a shot here at 7.5. I'm going to stay away from Illinois, but I think they bounce back. Like, I feel better about Illinois bouncing back than maybe Auburn's covering 16. You know what I mean? So I like Illinois in the spot, but I've heard everything I've read about this matchup because I've been trying to find an angle. It's that Chattanooga will keep it close.
So if Chattanooga is going to keep it close, and I'll be honest with you, I got a 9.5 on Chattanooga, took that, no hesitation. I agree. I think this one's going to be close, but if it is going to be close, it's going to be because they score on the offensive end, and Illinois just can't keep up the pace of it. They're 80th in the country, just under 75 points per game. The problem is the interior of Chattanooga's defense, which is kind of an issue because you have a guy like Kofi Coburn coming in. You know, they're 245th against the 2-point, but it's a 2-point shot on the inside, Joe. I mean, that's a problem if you're Chattanooga. You're going to need to come up with some sort of way to stop Coburn. It almost comes up to the hack a Giannis or stop Giannis or, the Giannis wall as you do in the, as people did in the NBA. I think they're going to have to come up with that. They just don't have a ton of size. I think we're going to end up seeing them use Avery Diggs, who's a 6'11" center, out quite a bit. Silvio De Souza is their 6'9" forward. He's probably going to be on Coburn a lot. Those two guys are going to have to be probably the main people on this. They're going to have to use a rotation, though. They're going to have to go deep in their bench. They're probably going to have to use guys they don't like to use a lot. Josh Ianni, Casey Hampton. They're going to have to go to those guys that people probably wouldn't normally go to. Coburn is 7 feet tall. He's a monster. So, this is going to be really, really hard. And I also look at this and say, all right, well, who's covering Andre Curbelo? Because, Curbelo is not a scorer, but he is a wizard with the ball. I am a little concerned that, that Illinois, though, is going to have a lot of problems defensively. I take a look at what, kind of what they do. The inside out, like Chattanooga is elite defending the perimeter, 25th in the country, 30%, only allowed 30% there. And, and that's what Illinois does best is like they like to, kick it out, go play an inside out game, and they shoot the ball at an extremely high rate. But they're not great on the other side of it. Like they're just not. And I have to be perfectly honest with you, Joe. Like you look at the breakdown here. First off, everything this reads like an under game to me. Okay. Just, looking to the periphery stats, and again, these are not really them, but this reads like an under game. But this Chattanooga team is going to be a public dog. Right now they're getting 77% of the bet, 76% of the money. That number that opened, they're claiming it opened 7. It was 9.5 on most of the openers. So Circa opened 7 because it got hit so very quickly before Circa opened the number. But yeah, I mean, this is a game that's going to be really interesting, and we're seeing some 8s pop up. I think it might go back up, but man, I don't love Illinois. I don't love Chattanooga's chances of winning this game. That being said, they have the right mixture to do it as long as they're offensively consistent, and that's just what they need to do. They just need to shoot the 3 ball against Illinois, and again, they're a very middling 3-point shooting team, which is kind of the concern. So we're going to find out what happens there. I think Chattanooga pushing Illinois off the 3-point line and Illinois trying to play an inside-out game might be a little bit of a struggle for them. We'll see what happens, but that's kind of my breakdown. I'm passing. I'm looking for a potential under here, though, because, again, I don't feel great about Illinois' chances on 3-point percentage.
All right, Duke. 18.5 points. Hasn't been good for Duke. They're playing a Cal State Fullerton team that whatever. So does Duke cover the number or not?
I'm going to say no. I'm going to say no. Look, Duke has just not been playing and blowing teams out, in the last couple of weeks. And, really since that UNC loss, it feels like something has changed, Joe, and I'm not really sure what it is. That Syracuse score where they won by 9, very misleading. That game, Syracuse was in control a large portion of that game. They beat Miami by 4. Miami was leading, I think Miami might have been leading at half or was down by 1.5 or whatever. Miami was leading a good portion of the first half, and that game was very close the entire game. Never felt like they were in the Virginia Tech game whatsoever. Felt like Virginia Tech controlled, owned that pace. And Fullerton, look, they've been playing well. Like they have been. I think they're, a team that has been playing pretty decently. I don't feel great about this Duke team whatsoever. I certainly am not looking to back them in this situation here. I think everyone's going to be all over Duke. I think this number that actually opened at 20 at DraftKings, it's 18.5 right now. I think by Friday tip-off, we see 20. I would be very interested and might be interested myself in investing in a CS ticket there.
Give me Iowa State over LSU. PP, baby, plus 4.5.
Are you serious?
I am dead serious.
Okay, well,
LSU fires their coach. Dan, Iowa State's the team we're out on, right? I am in on Iowa State upsetting LSU in the first round.
Congratulations. My biggest bet of the tournament is going to be LSU -4. PP, and it's not even close. Yeah, I don't know what the fuck you're looking at or what you're talking about. Who cares if LSU fires their coach? Who cares? This team is superior in pretty much every single way you look at it. Athletically, they're superior. Offensively, they're superior. Defensively, they're superior. Really, maybe not defensively, but really, this is not going to be a game that I think is going to be close at all. And I'm really surprised that why do you like Iowa State?
I just think that, dude, they're one of these teams that have beaten good teams all year, and they struggle against.
Who have they beaten this year?
Well, we'll pull up their schedule. I mean, I've at least seen them.
Here we go. Here are their wins this year. They beat Xavier in the non-conference. They beat Memphis in the non-conference. They beat Creighton. They had a very good win versus Iowa. I'll give them that. Outside of that, they have a win versus Texas Tech. They have a good
out-of-conference schedule, is what I think is what I meant.
Yeah, but their in-conference wins are awful, with the exception of Texas Tech and Texas. They have Oklahoma State, Missouri, TCU, Oklahoma, West Virginia, Kansas State. This is not a team that you want. I'm telling you right now, this is not a team you want to invest in this tournament. They cannot score, and when points are at such a premium in these tournaments early on, you absolutely don't want to do this. So the whole firing the coach angle is fucking overrated. This LSU team was never about Will Wade. Will Wade got fired because of his recruiting violations, not because he was a bad coach. LSU did not do the best in the SEC tournament. I agree there. But seriously, LSU is elite defensively, 33rd in the country, and middling offensively. Iowa State is 293rd in the country offensively, and they're 26th in the country defensively. This screams every which way LSU. Every single which way. LSU likes to play an inside game. That's their game. They play inside. They're not much of a three-point shooting team, okay? Where does Iowa State struggle defensively? Inside. 243rd in the country against two-point field goals. And again, that's exactly where LSU thrives. They're 136 in the country. So, again, not great, but still, that's where LSU scores. That's what they do. They force you into bad, stupid, dumb decisions offensively. Iowa State is that fucking team that makes those bad decisions. They don't get to the free throw line. They don't shoot the three well, 260th in the country. They don't shoot the two well, 151st in the country. They just don't shoot it well in general. And LSU, in my opinion, is going to act. If this game is within 10, I'll be surprised. I think LSU wins this game by 20-25. I'm not even kidding. I think this is going to be an absolute fucking blowout. You're really sticking with Iowa State here?
I think that Iowa at one point was one of the top teams in the country this year. They got smacked by Texas Tech. I think they're going to bounce back, and I think they got one of the better players in the country. The hell's his name? Isaiah Brockington. So like Iowa's got nothing to lose, bro. They got nothing to lose here, and and I know what LSU is. They're bigs. I know. And the thing I'll give LSU credit for is they do grind out. Like they play sticky, slow, methodical, trouble scoring type games, which is what gave Iowa State fits against TCU. Against Texas Tech. But I got a hunch. This is a hunch, Dan. It's not about profit. It's not about anything. This is a hunch. I got a hunch on this one against LSU. I think Iowa State's got nothing to lose here and is going to come out swinging.
You and everyone else. Iowa State getting 72% of the bets, 69%.
I haven't even looked at that yet.
93% of the money line bet, 93% of the money line money. So you and everyone else.
You know what it is? I just have this LSU like the scoring thing for me. It's like
Joe, Iowa State scored 36 points at home a couple weeks ago. Like
I know
against Oklahoma State. What are they going to do? Isaiah
Your facts are all valid. I am just taking Iowa State in this game. Plus 4.5 points.
Iowa State, 66, averages 66.5 points per game, tied for 328th in the country. 32 rebounds a game, tied for 383rd in the country. They are at a size disadvantage. They are at a speed disadvantage. They are at a length disadvantage. They are at a shooting disadvantage.
What am I going to change my pick?
I'm just telling you. This was I told you yesterday. I have a massive play in the tournament. This is a 2-unit play for me. This is a huge play. And honestly, if this wasn't going against Joe Murray, I would make it a 3-unit play.
Go ahead, make it a 3.
No, it's okay. I'll stick with 2.
Dude, Iowa State was a team I stayed away from. They got whooped. I just been staring at this one.
Is it the coach thing?
I think it's one angle, yeah. And I don't know if there is a coach angle. Like I don't know. I mean, has it happened this year? I don't know. I don't even know. But it seems too easy, Dan.
No, I mean, do you know what this number here opened LSU 6. It's been bet. I mean, pretty much the whole world is on Iowa State because of the LSU coaching angle. And again, I understand the early sharp money taking. Anyways, we can move on. I think this is going to be an absolute natural disaster. I'm looking at alt spreads on this one. I think this is, in my opinion, the biggest mismatch of the entire first round is LSU Iowa State. I think LSU wins by 20-25. Would not remotely surprise me. Maybe 25 is too much because they're just not a good enough offensive team. But 15 to 20 points, I think this is easy. Like really, I do. But I'm wrong all the time, Joe. It happens all the time. You're right.
I take chances often, Dan. So this is me just throwing a chance out there. But I am. There's something about LSU that's. I know you could say everything about Iowa State. I don't know. Something about LSU of late to kind of throw me off. And hey, they fired their coach, so I mean, maybe there was something to it.
I don't think Will Wade Will Wade makes that much of a difference for me. Like I don't think he was a very good head coach, so I don't think that losing Will Wade is like a big old massive loss for this team. If Wade was an elite head coach and they lost him, I'd be like, okay, well, you got to take a step back and reevaluate. But because I don't think Will Wade's very good, I don't think it's major loss.
Okay. Houston UAB. I like Houston this year. I know at times, you've been like, yeah, they're not that great. They got a 5th seed. UAB, 12 seed, won their tournament. I don't know why, but I feel like this is kind of a good matchup. So like Houston's been here before, at least over the last couple of years. I don't know much about UAB in the tournament. I'm going to be honest with you, or their history in it. But this is a 12 versus 5. So people always love to look at the 12 versus 5 matchup. UAB won 7 straight games, and they lost to who? North Texas. I think it was there. I was just looking at that there. But UAB's defense, dude, 330 steals, 7th in steals per game, 9.7. So they're almost 10 steals a game.
Yeah, they're very good stealing the ball. They're a very good offensive team just in general. They're fantastic. They score almost 81 points a game. They're 6th in the country. Houston defensively 4th in the country, allowing just under 59 points per game. So really, this is going to be really, really interesting in terms of how they play. I think this is an interesting matchup because it's strength for strength there. And usually, in my opinion, when it's strength for strength, that almost always favors the favorite. Because usually you're looking for in a dog, you're looking for strength versus weakness. Because at least there's a way to that team is going to attack. When UAB needs to score to win this game. You know that UAB probably needs to get into, the 70s to win this game. And Houston that's not the way that Houston plays. That's not the way that Houston plays. They're also very efficient offensively. They're 54th in the country in offense and almost score 76 a game. I don't like Houston. I don't think this team is going to be any great shakes this year. But I think this is a terrible matchup for UAB, just looking from the outside. UAB is not bad defensively. They're 91st in the country points per game. They're 98th in the country 3-point percentage. Like, this is not a bad UAB defense. But I just look at, Houston's super efficient on the inside, 32nd in the country, and 2-point percentage, which I think is super interesting. And, UAB is 75th in the country in that as well. Look, I think that you're going to, I think this total is pretty right on. I think it's like 135. I think it opened 136. I think you'll see this total come down a little bit in the next couple of days. Probably closes 135, 134 and a half ish. I think you'll see it come down a little bit. I like the under here just because I do think that, Houston is probably going to play the, we're going to be efficient inside against you and we're going to score. You have to do the same thing against us. And I don't, when it's strength versus strength, I just don't, it usually does not favor the dog. Usually you need strength versus weakness and then weakness for strength. And it's just, man, it just feels like this is a game that UAB could get absolutely pounded out. I'm not going to take a position in this one, I don't think. If I am, it's going to be Houston.
All right. I like Davidson also over Michigan State.
PP?
Davidson
plus 1.5.
Yeah, so I'm one of those guys, dude. Like Tom Izzo will get 5 of us and we'll go out there and play well. And he's got a good team. But they were 14-2. What'd they go? They sucked in Big Ten play at one point. What'd they go? They went
Michigan State went 11-9 in their conference.
That's what I mean. And they lost a lot, like 3 of their last 8 games or something. So
they were really, really bad down the stretch during the regular season. They won 3 of their final
2-7. 2-7.
Yeah, 2-7, and actually, 3-8 if you extend it even further. So, 3-9 if you extend it even further. Not great down the stretch. Not your typical Tom Izzo team. I mean, that's without a doubt there.
KenPom ratings: Michigan State's 40, Davidson 41. So whatever you want to do, however you want to play that off. I know people love their records, but Davidson did well against good opponents. Top 10 teams that went 2-2, but the rest of them they wiped out. But also people like look at the coaching matchup like, oh, Tom Izzo. The Davidson coach has been there forever too. Like that's a damn good coach they have too. What's his name there? Bob McKillop.
Yeah, Bob McKillop. Yeah, again, this is
Young Lee. Dan, this kid can shoot. He's a real shooter. I actually think Davidson has legit shooters that can put the ball in the basket, like Foster Lawyer. They have guys that can do it. I just think this is a good spot for Davidson and their shooting ability. The way that Michigan State kind of failed late, I like Davidson. And you know what? Davidson, if they win, they play Duke next round, and I like them against Duke too.
I do too. I think that Duke's in trouble second round, regardless if it's Michigan State or Davidson, to be perfectly honest with you. Yeah, looking at this, I mean, look, Davidson, you know what they do. They shoot the lights out. That's their thing. They're 8th in the country in three-point field goal percentage, shooting just under 39% from three. Michigan State, you know, they do push you off the line pretty well. They're 63rd in the country defending the perimeter, gave up just over 31% against threes. Like they're not, you know, again, Michigan State, very middling team this year. And I do think that is that's a major issue, at least in my opinion. You know, that is a major issue for me. I mean, that's at least where I would kind of put it, Joe. Like, take a look at, this team. And by the way, sorry, we just have some breaking NBA news that Ja Morant is out of tonight's NBA game for the Grizzlies. So as you can see, I'm running to the window here to try and get some money in on the Pacers, which I did. But regardless, look, Michigan State, 159th in the country defensively, points for, 148th in the country, points against, 148th in the country, points for. Okay, again, now that's just, again, we're using very interesting parameters here, but that's kind of like the most important, or that's not the most important stat, but that's kind of give you an idea of where these teams are. I don't like to dive into the advanced stats because it gets very complicated for people who don't understand them or don't really understand the values and how to value them. So that's why I kind of use like the periphery stats in these podcasts. Anyways, to give you an idea where Davidson lies, 58th in the country, points for, just over 75.5 points per game, and allow just under 66 points per game, 75th in the country. So, yeah, from the periphery, I think Davidson is the right side, Joe. They opened as a favorite. Davidson opened 1.5 across, very clearly across pretty much everywhere. It was not a surprise. And it moved very, very quickly after that. It went from, Davidson minus 1.5 to Michigan State minus, to PK, and then Michigan State minus 1, and Michigan State minus 2, I think is where it opened at Circa. Now we're seeing minus 1 again across the board. But yeah, look, I think this is a pick 'em. I think you can kind of go both ways with it. I do think that, the total also is interesting, sitting at 140.5. I have absolutely no feel on the total. I got to be honest, I lean Davidson, but I do think that the Izzo factor in March, I do think that there is a coaching advantage there. And I do think that has to kind of be factored in as well. And if you are going to factor that in, Joe, then I think you have to be honest about where this team is going to be, in a couple of days here. So yeah, I'm interested to see where everything kind of goes. So we'll see. That's my feeling. Your thoughts?
Wisconsin Colgate. So I've looked at this a little more, and I just wanted to know what Wisconsin has done where they've been 7.5 or 7, 7 points or more. So 9 times this season, they've been 7 or more point favorites. They only covered the spread in one of those. They're 7.5 right now.
Yeah.
When Colgate is in the same situation as 7-point underdogs or less, they're 2-2. So I wanted to at least look that up. But Colgate, dude, when the spread's the total's 139. Colgate has surpassed that 20 times this season. So what Wisconsin team you're gonna get? But if that number scares me. They've been 7-point favorites or more 9 times and only covered 1. Colgate can score. They're not athletic though. They can score. They're not athletic at all.
Yeah, no, they're not athletic at all. again, this is not the same Colgate team that you saw last year. Now, again, that Colgate team played a very modified schedule, but they were 11-1 in conference. They were really, really good, and they ran up against an Arkansas team that was just basically Colgate but better. And a lot of people love Colgate in the first round last year, and I was really, really surprised that was the case. That people like Colgate so very much. I honestly did not understand that at all. In my opinion, I thought that that would kind of be if anything, would be the opposite there. But people are really liking this Colgate team early on. Just kind of give you an idea of where the percentages lie. 66% of the bet, 95% of the money on Colgate. I do have a Colgate plus 9.5 ticket against Wisconsin. It opened 9.5 some places. Then it opened 8. Then it opened 7. Then it got bounced back up, and now it's sitting at 7.5 across the board. I do think that right now we're looking at first off, it's a home game for Wisconsin because the game is in Wisconsin. So, it's pretty much a home game for Wisconsin. We know what this Wisconsin team is. They're very average. They're nothing. They're not special. They're just kind of average. And I do think that Colgate does have a chance to beat this team because of the fact that they can score offensively. And I think Wisconsin struggles scoring the basketball at times. They do. It's not, it's not nearly as bad as it was, last year, 2 years ago. But, at times you're looking at a team that really struggles to break 70 sometimes and definitely does not break 80 on a normal basis. And, Colgate might have to get into that 74, 75 range to win this game, which obviously would kind of correlate with the over, in my opinion. I think that that's kind of the way that you have to look at this. If you like Colgate, you probably like the over. And, I like Colgate as well. They're second in the country in shooting the three. They shoot just over 40% from three. And, Wisconsin's okay defending the three. Well, 32 and just over 32% three. So, they're 113th in the country. So, this is not like a great classic Wisconsin defensive team. And I think that Wisconsin's going to struggle with Colgate offensively. I do. I think, or defensively, I think Colgate's going to be able to shoot the lights out. And then it comes down to how good can Johnny Davis be, and can Brad Davison give him anything else alongside? Because if Davison can give them something else, two big scores for Wisconsin. Colgate is a very middling defensive team. And again, when you start kind of ramping up to a Big Ten team like Wisconsin, that changes things very, very quickly. And so I do think that that's kind of going to be, interesting to kind of see that. But, I think the two scores are going to be an issue. 9.5 is too much. I think I make the line 7. It's basically a home game for Wisconsin. I think they should win, but I don't feel great about them covering, Joe. I just don't.
Yeah. I just be wary of Wisconsin for those who love them. Finally, I got no input. TCU, Seton Hall, don't care, Dan. I gave up on Seton Hall already this year. Don't know much about TCU. All I know is that they won 20 games this year, but that I won't be watching that game.
Well, it's a late night game. You might. You never know. You may end up watching that game. It's definitely possible. Look, TCU is pretty good, man. Like, TCU was pretty good in the Big 12 this year. They went 8-10 in their conference, which is kind of the issue. Their conference is significantly better than the Big East, in which Seton Hall went 11-8. And I think, to me, I was surprised to see the opening number, TCU +2. I thought TCU would open a favorite in this one. You look down and kind of what TCU, what have you done for me lately? TCU played Kansas tough 3 straight games. They beat them at home. They lost by 4 in Kansas. They lost by 7. They lost by 13 in the conference tournament, but that game was a little bit closer than that early on, and then it got way away from them. But again, you play the same team 3 times very quickly. I just think TCU, you look at what they've done this year, and they have some really, really good wins, especially in conference this year. Beat Texas Tech, beat Kansas, beat Texas, beat a surging Oklahoma State team, although I really can't give them credit for that. They beat Iowa State, who you love so much. They beat LSU. Like, and then when you look at, you look outside of their conference and what they did. They crushed Utah. They beat Texas A&M, who's playing an extremely high level right now, and somehow missed out on the tournament, which to me is astonishing. They were good. Seton Hall, in my opinion, like they lost, they beat Michigan early in the year, but they lost Ohio State, who I don't think is very good. Yeah, they beat Texas at home, I guess, but their conference play, very underwhelming. Their best win was UConn early in the conference tournament or early in the conference year. They beat them by 3. Other than that, they really didn't have any very many impressive wins, in conference. I look at this team. I'm not really convinced by the Seton Hall team. I'm just not. I'm not convinced by the Big East in general, but I'm certainly not convinced by Seton Hall. They played very well down the stretch, which is why people are kind of loving them right now. But they got smoked against UConn in the tournament. I think TCU is playing far better than they are, and I think they play a much better brand of basketball. You look at the kind of the stats and how everything lines up for them there. Seton Hall, 94th in the country in points per game allowed, 103rd in the country in points per game for. The one thing with TCU is they just they have to score. Eventually, they're elite. They're 50th in the country, top 50, which is fantastic. TCU can't shoot the 3, which is the biggest problem and has been their biggest problem all year. And Seton Hall defends the 3 extremely well. So the question is, can TCU go inside and exploit Seton Hall on the interior? And I think that's where we get a matchup. Seton Hall is extremely good on the interior as well, 21st in the country in 2-point percentage. So to me, there is a little bit of a reaching out and thinking that TCU is playing superior talent and probably should be, the way that they finish up the season, the superior team compared to Seton Hall, who I just don't have a lot of faith in, especially with the conference. We're going to find out. Again, probably not one I would bet on right now. The market has definitely moved against Seton Hall. It opened Seton -2, and now we're seeing Seton -1. Very few places or a pick 'em. So that is the case. By the way, the over in this one, I totally disagree with 129.5, and people are it's moving up to 130. I'll probably be on the under. I haven't taken a deep look into this one yet because it is the last game on the slate. So it is kind of a game I'm still a little bit unfamiliar with, but I do think that under is probably going to be the play on this one. So,
all right, Dan. Well, we went through every game. Couple of play-ins tonight. Anything changed? I'm a Corpus Christi guy and still looking at Indiana for a little bit here.
Yeah, I like Corpus Christi. I do. I think that is probably the side I would go with tonight. I gave out some plays on Twitter as well for tonight because I don't know what time this podcast is going to be up. It might not be up until later, and so yeah, I'm not sure about that one. But look, I think this tournament's going to be fantastic, Joe. People want to know, who do you have in your Final Four?
My Final Four was Gonzaga, Kansas, Purdue, and Tennessee.
Okay. I went with, let me see if I can pull it up. I'll just quickly see if I can find one on one of my, I did my brackets in my ace books today. So let's see. I'll choose this one. I had Gonzaga, UCLA, Tennessee, and Iowa. Gonzaga is my champion.
Man, Gonzaga is the champ too. Yeah, man, I like Tennessee too, man. Like, I think Arizona has the easiest road to the Elite Eight. And then, boom, I think they're gonna get knocked off by Tennessee.
Yeah, I mean, especially if you have Nuga beating, if you have Chattanooga beating Illinois or Houston or UAB beating Houston or whatever. If you believe that one of those two teams is going to get whether it's Houston or Illinois, especially if you think one of those two teams is going to get eliminated, I do think that you have a good shot of having Arizona go up against a much lower seed, whether it's a 12 or 13 potentially there. In which case, yeah, really good, nice road for Arizona. Look, I don't know. I think this Arizona team is really good, but I also think they're really, really beatable. So we'll see.
All right, man. That's it. Let the games begin.
Yep.
We're a half hour away.
Will be a very, very fun tournament. I'm excited to kind of see everything that goes on.
All right, Dan, do you want to record this and post this as well, or just keep it live?
No, I'll post it later tonight.
All right, I'll send you the download, and that's it, everybody. We're back Thursday morning, Dan. We're back for our Bankroll Boys segment, and we're ready to go. All ready for March Madness here. We'll wrap it up here. It's another edition of the Over Under Podcast.
Who you got? Good luck tonight.